YouTube and welcome back to my channel. In this video I'm going to talk you through exactly how I make one of my photo boards like these. I'm going to go step by step over how I do it and what I use. What's up YouTube and welcome back to my channel. This is a great place for photographers to get some tips and tricks on all things photography. So like I mentioned, this video is going to be how I make one of my DIY photo boards. So I'll pop up some pictures here of them in use, and these are some of my older ones. Okay, so the first thing you're going to need is a blank sheet of plywood. Excuse my fingers, they're still covered in paint from making this board. This here is the back side of the one I used. It's 2 by 3 feet, and after it's finished it looks like this. So I went for a more blue toned board so it'll contrast really nice with autumn oranges and reds and things like that, which is the kind of colour contrast I was looking for. After you've got your board, you're going to want to pick out your paints. I always like to have the white and black paint. This is the black one I used. You want your paint to be matte paint. It means it's going to dry matte and not shiny. You don't want to use shiny paints for photography because they'll reflect the light and you'll get a lot of glare. Kind of like what's on me right now, which is really annoying, but I can't control the sun. This is the white paint I use. It's a very big bucket, but that's just because it's what was left from painting our garage. You do not need this much paint. The reason I go for a lot of black and white paint is because these can be used on all boards to mix in with the different colours you're going to use to make it darker and lighter, or add in some lighter areas and some darker areas to the board. On top of the black and white paint, you're going to need your colour paint. So the two colours I used were these two, just to kind of get 2 different tones of blue. So that's our colours sorted. The next thing you're going to need is something to mix them in. I just use a few little pots like this to mix the paint in to get the right colours and to get the right ratios and things like that. The next thing you're going to need is some things to apply the paint to the board, so that everything you use will give off a completely different texture or feel or look to how the paint is applied. One thing I do like using is a sponge. So this is obviously a clean one, this one hasn't been used. This is the one that I used for this board. So complete mess. These do probably need to be chucked away after them. I don't think you could use them again. And some paintbrushes. The different ways to apply them will give different textures. So sometimes it's always good to just use both and figure out what you prefer the most. Use a mixture of both. I mean, I used a mixture of brush and sponges in this. The sponge gives a much more even, flat look. This one was only using a sponge, so you can have it can give it a much more blotchy effect, or if you wipe with the sponge, it gives it a much more even effect. Every time I make one of these boards, in a way, I'm completely winging it. I've got an idea in my head of what colours I want to use, how I want it to look or feel, but there's no way I can guarantee exactly how it's going to look at the end. Every single time I've made one of these, it's been completely different. I've got about 8 different boards back there, and I don't think one of them came out exactly as I imagined. I'm happy with them all, but it's completely random sometimes. One other thing I do like to have is a little thin spatula. I use this, as you'll see in the videos coming up, to get a bit of texture into the paint. I just rub it along the board when there's wet paint on it, just to move it about and give it a kind of scratchy effect. You can see there, that kind of scratching, that's done from that. So that's everything I used for this board. Now I'm going to go into making the board. I took videos of each time I was working on this. There is a few hours between each one where I'll mention let it dry. I would say when you're doing it, make sure it is fully dry because it completely changes look when it's dry. I did not make this part of the video yesterday because by the time I was finished it, 1, it was quite dark, and 2, while the board was still wet, I wasn't happy with it, so I thought in the morning I may change it. But when I woke up this morning, maybe it was just a fresh pair of eyes, or maybe it's just because it looked completely different. I was worried there wasn't enough blue in the board, but as it dried, it did dry a lot brighter and the blue was a lot more obvious. So make sure it's dry before you do anything, because 1, it will change. 2, you don't want to just start mixing the paint up, because when you put paint back onto nearly dry paint, it'll just start making a big sloppy mess. So make sure it's dry. So I start with doing a black base coat. I'll cover most of the board with this black. This is just to make sure we definitely get a really deep, dark and moody style board. I will leave some areas empty, and I'm going to mix some black and some blue in these areas, and we're going to have a nice dark blue. This is just to make sure there's still some tonal variations and I'm not just left with a black base, which will make it really hard to add some blue when I come back around to add in the second layer. Don't worry too much what your board is looking like right now. It's going to change quite a lot when you come back to it when it's dry. After you've got your coat on, leave it to dry for at least a couple of hours. That way it's definitely going to be dry when we come back to add our second coat. We don't want to start mixing it around, and we want to let it dry so we can have a really good idea of what it looks like. So we're onto our second board here, and I'm just mixing up some more black and blue. So I'm making it a bit more blue this time, so we've got a lot more colour coming through on top of that black. This will be the layer that adds a bit more colour to the board and gives it much more of a bluey colour. I'm also wiping some of the paint with a sponge and not just dabbing, just to add a few different textures to how the paint is applied, just to make it look a little bit more random and give it more of an effect. Just practice with these boards, see what you like and see how applying the paint can change exactly the look of the board. So I'm splashing a bit of the paint on here just to kind of give it a bit more of a random effect, because it's really hard for our brains to work randomly when we're applying it. We tend to put it in patterns without even noticing it. I've used 2 different colours of blue here, so you can see there's slightly different tones in the blue, which makes it look a lot more random as well. I'm scratching with the scratcher just to kind of get a different effect in there, just to kind of see how that looks, and just trying things out. You can always try it out and go back over it with another coat if you don't like it. I kind of regret putting this coat on, but it did look okay in the end, but I was starting to work with too much wet paint here and it's kind of mixing up a bit more than needed. After your second coat is done, leave it to dry for a few hours, and then we'll come back to it and see how it is for the third and final coat. So we're on to our final coat here. So this is the third coat and the final one for this particular board. You can add as many coats as you want to. If you don't like it when it's dried, just go over and do it again. I felt this one needed a bit more blue on the right hand side, so I'm trying to add a bit more blue, but I felt like it was a bit too even, so I just started splashing about. Honestly, the best way of doing these boards is to just practice, see what you like and see what you don't. You can always go over it and end up with a board with 10 coats on if you want. I really like the splash effect, but I feel like it's a bit too in your face, so I kind of blended a lot of them back up, added some more, and just got rid of them where I didn't really want them. Adding some more scratches down this board just to kind of give it a nice texture, and then we're done. The last thing you'll need for your board is the matte finish. I thought I had mine out, but I didn't, so I'll be right back. Okay, so this is what I use to finish. It's a matte sealer. I don't have this on yet, so you want to make sure it's clear. Obviously, I accidentally got a white one once, went to put the finish on, and my whole board was white. What a waste. So, you want it to be clear, obviously, because you've worked hard on the look of your board. If you spray it on a white matte finish, it will be completely white. And again, you want it to be matte because you don't want to have any glare in your images. This is important for food photography because if you've got studio lights, a shiny board is just going to reflect it and you're just going to end up with a big white splodgy looking reflection. The reason it's important to put this protector on is because we do make quite a lot of mess with food photography, and having this on it does allow you to wipe it clean. I mean, this shot up here, was very messy, and with this on that board I could just simply wipe that orange juice away and no stains whatsoever. I will put a link in the description to all of the products that I'm labelling here. I will try and find the same paints, but I'll roughly get the same if they're not, because obviously these are from a shop in England. I'm not sure if I can find that on Amazon. The reason I haven't put this on my board yet is because I've not actually taken a picture with it yet. I won't do this until I'm completely happy with the board. I can't really take this back off. Okay guys, that is how I made this board, and now let's have a quick look of how it looks in a picture. Now I'm going to quickly take a picture with this pumpkin and show you how it looks. Thanks for watching this video guys, and if you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below if you've got any questions or if there's anything else you'd like to see. Subscribe to this channel for more photography content. I do have a few different boards that I make, so I may do another video of how to make one with some more texture, like this one you see back here, and this black one, just like these textured boards. I might do another video on how to do that because there is a few extra steps. Thank you guys, bye! Ow!